This generation is on track for the worst health outcomes, even a lower life expectancy compared to their parents.
Welcome back to the Athlete's Edge podcast and Happy New Year to everyone listening. If you're watching this on the day it comes out, it's January 1st, the day where everyone suddenly feels refreshed, motivated and ready to start again. But even if you're watching this weeks or months later, the message is still the same. This episode is about goals, resolutions, daily habits, and being the example your kids and family need. January 1st gives people permission to care about those things for a moment. The real power comes from caring about them every day. So today we're breaking down why most resolutions fail, why motivation alone won't save you, what's happening to this generation's health, why parents have the biggest influence, and 2 simple actionable systems you can use today, January 1st or any day, to build a stronger year. So let's get into it, Timothy. Let's start with the big one. Why do most goals fail?
Simply, they're built on motivation, not on behaviour. And I think that's why this time of year we're talking Jan 1st. It feels really motivating. It's a new year, so it's almost it's a clean slate. We get a bit of a refresh button, and as a result, people get excited. Off the back of that, we can set some big goals, make some declarations, some pretty outlandish ones. The challenge there is the motivation fades fast, sometimes within days, even hours for some. And that's because, so to your question, resolutions fail because they're emotional, not structured. They're big ideas, but without the daily behaviours, kind of those steps that get you there. And it's off the back of that, it's reliant just on that hope, that dream, not systems behind it. So people say things like, I want to get fitter, I want to lose weight, maybe I want this to be my best season yet or my best year yet, which are all great goals, but they stay goals unless you can zoom right in on what you got to do today to make those become reality. Because the goals don't create the results, it's the habits that do. And that brings us to why this matters so much.
And that's where I think people get kind of lost. They sort of, see the goal, it's emotional, and it's, they see this big goal, but they don't realise the journey that it takes.
I think we can tell ourselves, this is my goal, and I'm alive and doing things, so therefore I'm on the path to that goal. It's like, no, if you actually really mapped out what's required and the intensity it's required at and the consistency that's required to get there, then it changes. And I think that's where people put it, because it gets hard.
Yeah, even just the time frame as well. People don't really put a time frame on it, so that way they have the out of, I'm still getting towards my goal. It's just taken 6 to 8 months when it could have realistically taken you 2 or 3.
Yep. Elon Musk is a great one for that. He talks about something like, what's your 10-year goal? Now make it happen in 6 months.
Yeah.
People are like, whoa. He's like, that's just how he operates, which is why he's that successful.
And this is, where the why gets real, because the outlook for this generation isn't great.
Yeah, so we're talking about goals and obviously very athletic-minded kind of audience, but I guess this isn't goals for the sake of goals. This generation is on track for the worst health outcomes, even a lower life expectancy compared to their parents. So this hasn't happened in modern history since the wars. So like I said, this is bigger than athletic development, just for a chance at, say, pro sport. We're talking about kids' lives here, because kids today will move less, they'll sleep less, so they're sitting more, they'll spend more time on screens, which we know are linked to lots of poor health outcomes. They're eating more processed foods, they'll have higher stress and anxiety despite all this, and they'll have worse metabolic health, spending less time outdoors in fresh air and sunshine. But it's not the kids' problem. It's that their environment has changed and their mind and bodies are now reflecting that change. So if nothing changes, every generation from now on is going to keep getting a little bit worse. And we're obviously passionate about health and fitness and well-being. I don't believe we can rely on schools or sports to make kids healthy. Even governments won't be able to fix this. It really starts in our homes, which leads us to this next part, which I think is really important.
Yes, this is where we've had a couple of conversations over the last few weeks around role modelling and how crucial it is, especially as a parent and as a leader.
Yeah, and look, this comes from some perspective. It comes from working with thousands of kids. Now, a parent myself. Kids don't copy what you say, despite us wanting to say, do this and they'll do it. What they do copy is what we do, which comes to the role model piece. So they'll copy the language we use, the attitudes we have towards certain things, our stress response to different challenges and stressful situations, our relationship with our food, our sleep, our training and exercise, our commitment, our excuses, our routines. If at home everything is always too hard, or excuses are fairly normal that we throw around, if health always gets put on the back burner, if we avoid problems and the challenges we need to face, and if we're using all this negative language, kids pick up on that and they just emulate, and that's they essentially become their parents. On the other hand, committed athletes almost always come from homes where we see parents that are up early, they're moving consistently, they talk about like solutions, not excuses. So they're typically more the glass half full than the half empty. They take responsibility, they show discipline. You see the habits you want the kids to have, you see them in the parents. The parents' mindset will become their mindset, and the parents' standards will become the kids' standards. So Geordie is a 4-year-old, great example. Like the last month, keeps asking me, Dad, wake me up. I want to come to work with you at 5 a.m. Not because he has any clue really about training. It's because he sees me doing it, and some of the athletes he knows they're in the morning. So what does he want to do? He wants to be around that culture because, I guess that's my standard. So if you want to change your year or your kid's year, it starts with you.
It's the saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and that's definitely the truth. So what's the first strategy people can use today to actually implement and change some of their habits and their behaviours, especially when it comes to role modelling for their kids? Yeah,
so I've gone through a few evolutions of this, and I sort of settled on the Today system, which is pinched from a range of different people and sort of trial and error on myself. It's off the back of everything comes down to what you do today. So for me, every morning, 4:30 a.m, I wake up, have my shower, make a coffee, I'll sit at my desk. First thing I'll do. And so what I've got is some columns on a spreadsheet. Column 1 is what can I prioritize for my family today? What can I do to help or support my staff? And that third column is how can I add some value to the business? And then I've got basically my daily, linked into my daily habits that I sort of mentioned before. So I've got what am I going to focus on with my training for the day, my calorie target, protein target, supplements I need to take, and where are my 10 pages of non-fiction coming from. So it sounds like a lot, but some of them are just like, which book am I reading? Just my calorie target, my protein target might not change across, a month. So a lot of them are kind of automatic. So it only takes a couple of minutes, but from there it anchors my whole day because I know, okay, here's my standard that I need to check amongst everything else that's going on, that I cross them off as I go. So then the next morning I can reflect on how did the day before go quickly. And then at the end of the week or the month, I can see on my spreadsheet all the strike throughs every time I've crossed something off and where I haven't. And the goal is to obviously have a period where everything's crossed off. Now that doesn't always happen. So like yesterday, for example, I was 20 grams short of my protein goal. Everything else was crossed off, but there's one there. The key there is once I've done that and I focus on the next day, I hide that row. So until I do my review, it's not there anymore. So all I see is one row across the page. Nothing below it, nothing above it other than the heading. So, and that's off the back of there's, like yesterday is done, so move on. And then tomorrow is not even a factor because it hasn't happened yet. So why stress about tomorrow when all I can control is today?
And having that sort of simple routine or checkpoints or daily goals, it actually just reduces the randomness that you have throughout the day. I feel like a lot of people go into their day where it's not really pre-planned, so they kind of don't know what they're having for lunch, and then they take what's the easiest option is some sort of takeaway, then they all of a sudden they're over their calorie target or whatever it might be.
Yeah, there's all these things down the line that just happen. Like it might sound like a lot, and it is when you start, but the benefit is exactly what you said, is it's like it actually gives me structure. So once that's set, and as I get better at it, the rest of my day is so much easier because now I don't waste all this mental energy on and time thinking about all this other stuff because I just go, that's my focus today, tick it off, move on. All these other things, like I said, pop up that I've got to spend time and energy on. So, that is a distraction enough. I don't need the things I need to focus on being a distraction.
And the second strategy is the 1-3-1 rule we use a lot here. So can you sort of walk us through that?
Yeah, I think this one is a good one for athletes themselves, like kids to work on, as well as adults, talking about like parents being an example and how we can kind of teach some responsibility and problem solving in kids. So I don't believe most people have a knowledge problem. There's so much information out there now. I believe most indecision or lack of action is simply that. It's we need to make decisions and commit to action. So the 1-3-1 rule, I think, really fixes that. So whenever you're facing a problem, or say your kid comes to you with a question or something, so this is how the 1-3-1 rule works. So it's having one problem defined, 3 possible solutions, and then you just pick one. So pretty simple. So what you can start to do is, 1, define the problem. So a problem well defined is half solved, and that's probably where most people stop. This isn't working, or I've got this issue, don't really give it much thought. Define it, like what actually is the problem? And you might actually unpack that it's something slightly different to what you thought. But then once you figure that out, bang, okay, what are the 3 things now I can literally write down that are potential options to make this better? They don't have to be perfect, you're just trying to find 3 different options. And then from there, you just simply pick the best one, move on. You can always come back, review and repeat, but at least it gives you 1, 3, one thing, bang, there's your action, which gets you moving forward, which is the biggest thing. So when we talk about parenting or even the athlete themselves, the beauty of this is at first you might need to guide them to help define the problem. If it's the first time using it, or even for yourself, maybe you need some help. What actually is the problem? And you got to spend a bit more time there. Maybe you got to suggest a couple of solutions after that. And then maybe you need to help guide them through the best solution. But eventually they'll come to you saying, hey, here's a problem. Here are my 3 solutions. I think I'm going to go with this one. What do you think? And you go, sweet, done. You're actually starting to raise someone that can think, adapt, lead. They're problem solving. And just like everything else, this comes from modeling. So if parents are a bit irrational, a bit emotional with their decision making, and get a bit flustered, or get a bit angry or a bit down about things, then obviously kids emulate it. But if parents can start to follow this rule or something like it, then they see kids and they'll actually just be drawn to it. When you face challenges, mum, dad, how come you get through it so easily and you never get flustered? Well, this is how you do it.
I think people are pretty good at step 1 and 2, where they can define some of the problems, list some solutions, but I think step 3 is where most people struggle. It's the kind of the knowing and the doing gap. They kind of know what they should be doing, but they're not doing it, which creates that cognitive dissonance that I know we've talked about in the past. So what is, when it comes to goals, how do we actually make them stick?
Yeah, so whether it's a goal or whether you've got something you need to work towards, I think call it the goal achievement loop. So we kind of know the North Star, whether that's a goal or something I need to do to solve a problem. But off the back of that, we don't necessarily write down our actions, and we definitely don't link rewards. So then I think this is where the loop comes in. So then as a result, nothing happens because there's no process, there's no feedback. So for me, how I approach it is if I can link a reward to a certain goal, knowing that these are the actions that need to happen to get there, usually it's a reward that I'm probably going to buy anyway, like something I need. So maybe it's a new pair of shoes or a new shirt or something like that. By linking it, you create that reinforcement that I need to do this to get to that outcome. So some specific examples. I need a new wardrobe. My goal is to get under 95 kilos, and I don't get to do that until I hit that. I was hoping that it was going to be last week, but it's probably going to be this week. So, but I'd stuck to that process. No, I don't get to. I've got to delay it a week and go and do it because that's the goal. If I want new runners, I had to schedule 7 reels for the week ahead, 1 each day. I only get the shoes if the reels are in. My mentor does this with huge goals. So he'll use things like family overseas trips linked to his business targets. So if he doesn't hit them, the trip doesn't happen. And it's not punishment. And I think if that's the view you have, then you probably need to, again, look at your mindset on this stuff. To me, it's commitment. And because what that does is it gets buying around you. So it's not now just about you. There's a accountability to your support network. So what happens to, say, you're going overseas. If you had a certain goal and linked it to that trip, going with, say, like your brother and stuff, do you think he's bought into you helping you achieve your goals if he doesn't get to go overseas with you? Or is he trying to block you from achieving them. If you're a bit lazy or don't want to get off the couch someday, he's almost kicking you out the door saying, no, got to go for your run, or no, put that down in the kitchen and stay on track.
So how do people, I feel like they set really achievable goals where it's like nearly not hard enough. So that way I feel like they, in the back of their mind, they kind of know the reward is guaranteed because they set such an achievable goal that they could have done in their sleep. So how do they find the balance of setting an unrealistic goal, but something that is actually achievable at the same time, so that way they can actually maximise?
I think a goal is, how are you going to measure it and what's the time frame? And I think if you do that, it's because I think what you're probably implying then is it's not a measurable goal. Like it's easy because it's easy to say, yeah, I ticked it off. If I said I'd pay for you to go to Bali for a month and you had to be in bed by 8 p.m. and up by 4 a.m. for a month without missing a single day, what do you reckon the strike rate would be in the gym? Because that's not hard.
No.
But it's hard to do 30 days in a row without missing one single day, despite that carrot being there. And I think people don't define that. It's like, I've got to improve my sleep. How do you measure that? Yeah, I ticked it off. You give yourself a tick because you didn't actually define it. It's this time to this time and it's in this many days. Then it starts to become harder because one slip up means you didn't achieve that goal. Yeah, because the goal isn't the end result, like in terms of what we're rewarding the process to get to that goal. And that's why I think some of our kids don't improve, because like I have this conversation all the time is, okay, I don't see my sprint times improving. Okay, well, the last 6 months, how consistent have you been? Pretty good lately, but yeah, last month I missed a few and stuff. It's like, well, the results you get today are a result of the last 3 months, not just the last 4 weeks. Like to be, like we talk about Darcy, to get the results he's exceptional. He hasn't missed a session in like 6 years and he's 20, 21. Like he's been doing this from a teenager and he doesn't miss. So I think it's, yeah, the goals don't necessarily need to be really hard. It's the process has to just be really clear. And that's where I think like most people are good at identifying the goal or the problem. I agree partly. I don't think we're great at really clearly defining it.